Hello and welcome to the Ovary Jones Show. If you too heard those words, you've got cancer, this is the place to be. Here we talk about how to fight cancer without losing your mind. I'm your host, Melanie Holscher, survivor and author of Becoming Ovary Jones and founder of Together We Box. I am so excited to have a guest in today that was the most influential person in my cancer battle. Let's welcome Angie Moss. Angie, welcome to the Ovary Jones Show.
Thank you so much, Melanie. Such kind words. Thank you.
Absolutely. Angie, you and I spend every Friday morning together, and we have for many years on a mastermind group with two other incredible women, Katie Hassan and Rebecca Swanson. And you were there throughout all of the decline of my health, the diagnosis, and all the way through my journey. And I don't know if you remember, but there was one day early in the diagnosis where I was just having a literal meltdown. It was just full fledged temper tantrum. I was saying, I don't want to have cancer. Why me? I don't have time to have cancer. My career is going great. And I will never forget you in your very soft voice said, I know. I didn't want to have cancer either. And it just stopped me in my tracks because I didn't know that you fought cancer. So, Angie, I would love for you to take us back. What were you doing before you were diagnosed?
Because my journey was so much easier than some people's, I tend to be dismissive and I don't tend to share it. And I tend to almost not even put myself in that same category. And I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's just sort of how my mind works. I can tell you that I was in a really unusual place when it happened. This was back in 1999. I was divorced. I had three kids. I was working at a job. It was a sales job, kind of a salary bonus type of thing. Financially, things weren't working well at all. And thankfully, though, I knew something was wrong, thought something was wrong, never thinking it was cancer, of course, but I knew something was wrong. Went to the doctor, went to my OBGYN and had a pap smear and, my regular appointment. And they noticed something and they asked me to go back for another test. And I did, and never telling me exactly what they thought it was or anything like that. Just I was brushing it off. It wasn't a big deal. I was certainly busy with three kids that were ages 5, 6, and 7, right? So I had lots to do. And I was working at the time at an assisted living center. I was the director of marketing for several assisted living facilities. And the phone rang in the office, and it was actually in the lobby of the assisted living facility where I had my office. And I remember I answered the phone and took the call in the lobby of the assisted living facility, and it was my doctor. And he says, well, I have some news for you. You've got cancer. And so what I want to do is I want you to come into my office. I'm going to have you call, I'm going to transfer you over to the receptionist and go ahead and get an appointment scheduled for early next week.
Wow.
So I remember that lobby. I remember standing there and going, what? What? Like I guess it never occurred to me that somebody could tell you that over the phone
Yeah.
and like act like it was nothing. Yeah, so that's how I got the news. That's how
Wow.
I got the news. And then I remember thinking, why do I am I not going to your office until next week?
Right?
Like I don't understand. Like so then I had these visions of this horrible stuff in my body and I just wanted it out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't understand what it didn't he didn't really have there wasn't an opportunity to ask questions, there wasn't anything. So that was a long weekend.
Right.
That was a long week.
Somebody else asked me, why do they always tell you on Friday?
Yeah, like I don't understand.
Yeah.
So there wasn't much to do that weekend except for just wallow in like concern and worry and the unknowing, you know, because until you have cancer, it's just a huge bad word. You don't understand. There are a lot of sizes and shapes and forms of cancer. I didn't know it. But when I went to talk to him, I had cervical cancer. And basically what he said to me in the meeting was he gave me some treatment options. And one of them was a partial hysterectomy. And then one of them was to just take out the section that they thought had cancer. And he said, but you've already got kids, so you should just do the partial hysterectomy. And he wanted me to give him an answer right then and there.
Wow.
And I think I did, but I remember leaving there going, wait a minute. Like, he said, you know what? You've already got kids. You know what? You've been able to have your kids. You're good. This is just the best way to go. And I remember the whole thing was just so surreal to me, because I remember thinking, but my kids are young. And what if I want to get married again? And what if I want to have kids again? And you're acting like this is like no big deal. You're, and I think at the time it was almost like an extreme version of somebody coming and robbing you, It was this all in one, like 30-minute appointment. I have this man telling me, okay, so we're going to take away your ability to have kids, whether you like it or not, because, anything to make a decision other that would be irresponsible, was the impression he gave me.
Wow. So now you have to deal with the idea of cancer in your body, and then also mourn the loss of your fertility?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How did you cope with all of that?
Well, so I'm one of these, I like to have a lot of answers. I like to research things, and I'm not a very detailed person, but I like information. I like knowledge. And so what I remember doing when I left, and so when I left, I had agreed to partial hysterectomy, and it was not going to be scheduled for like 3 weeks, which again was torture for me, because I was like, this is stupid. And he also told me it was a pretty aggressive, based on how much he saw and the time of my last pap smear, that it seemed to be moving at a pretty rapid pace. But yet, must not have been too bad, at least in my mind, because I don't know how this stuff works.
Right.
Even though a rapid pace, but yet you're not going to schedule my surgery for 3 more weeks. Right. So I was struggling with that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I said, well, I just got to find out everything I need to know. I just got to, educate myself on what it is. And so for me, looking back, I took what I would describe maybe a very controlled response outwardly. They didn't tell anybody, because I wasn't sure if I should tell anybody, because I wasn't sure what it meant. I didn't know all of the details. So I said, well, you know what? I'm going to learn everything I can learn. And unfortunately, or not, however you want to look at it, there's a bunch of information online. Some of it is helpful, some of it's not, some of it's right, some of it's not. You don't have the ability to discern a lot unless you really dig in. And I did. I just did a ton of research. And what I quickly realized is I could do this forever. Mm-hmm. And all I was doing is I started realizing, thankfully, very quickly, every time I opened the computer, I was feeling worse. And I was like, this is not helping me.
Right.
And so I remember thinking, you know what? Right now, I'm going to figure out what it is. Maybe I haven't figured out so far. I'm going to get my questions answered. I'm going to do a little bit more. And once I get off this site, I'm done. I'm not going to do any more, because it's not making me feel good and it's not helping me. And all I'm doing is making myself unable to think right. I'm not functioning. I'm not doing the things I want to do. And that's ridiculous,
right?
Because I'm not going to have surgery for 3 more weeks.
Right.
And so if there's nothing I can do, then why am I going to rack my brain? Why am I going to put myself in this horrible position for 3 weeks? And so then I turned my attention to preparation. What do I need to do to take care of the kids after surgery? And what do I need to do financial? I just sort of started focusing on, what is it, now the term we are familiar with is control the controllables. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I didn't have that terminology, but I just knew I just got to focus on what I can do. And I got to let go of everything else. And so that's what I did.
Absolutely. Wow. And so, yes, we are very familiar with the controllables. And the crazy thing is with cancer, you can't control what's happening inside your body with the cancer. So focusing on it and spending too much time in that state isn't very helpful. But what are some of the things that you did focus on that you did find more helpful? I know, what can you control? And a lot of times it's like, well, I don't know. What can I possibly control whenever I'm fighting cancer? Were there any practical things that you were able to focus on that you really could control?
Well, one of the things that I realized, and I don't know if I read something, things get blurry sometimes. But one of the things I remember is when I was thinking about my cancer and focusing there, I found that I was actually visualizing it growing, because in my mind, I guess it was, because it had. And so, of course it is. And that's what's going to happen for the next 3 weeks. And I think one of the things that I realized was by doing that, I wasn't serving myself. I wasn't serving myself. And then I started thinking, what if in my mind, by thinking this way and visualizing it this way, it's actually making it happen more fast? And I don't know. I'm not, this metaphysical, person, but this is my body. And so I thought, maybe there is some truth to that. Maybe there is some truth to what I'm thinking and how I'm imagining this. If there is any truth to it at all, I got to stop.
Right.
I absolutely have to. And I have to start doing the very opposite thing. And that's what I did. I had to shift my attention to just very practical things, to, the kids and how long I was going to be out of work and what that was going to look like. Financially, I was not in good shape, having just been divorced recently and being a single mom. And so I was focusing on all of those very practical things. Who was going to pick the kids up from school when I couldn't drive? Those kinds of things.
Wow.
So
there was a lot on your plate.
Yeah, there was.
Absolutely. So I remember, I have to say, I remember you giving me something to do. And when I wanted to have a temper tantrum, I wanted to have a meltdown, and you told me, go ahead and have your meltdown. Let's just put a timer on it. Can you explain what you meant by when you told me to put a timer on it?
This is, again, one of these things, these practices that I sort of learned along the way. It came from this thought of when you're angry or when you're upset, you just don't have the energy to do that all day long. Like, you cannot be incredibly angry 24 hours a day, 7. You just can't do it. There comes a point where you run out of energy for that. Same thing with crying. Mm-hmm. And so what I realized was, if you're not leaning into it, if you're just crying and you're trying to avoid it, you cry a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there, it's going to drag on and it's going to be forever. And you're really not attending to it. You're not respecting the emotion that you're having, and you're trying to just hide it or put it away and stuff it away. And if you attend to it, if you lean into it, if you feel it, if you acknowledge it, if you respect that you're having it, you just give yourself permission to have it and have it in a big way. Man, just bawl your eyes out, but decide, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it for 2 hours or 4 hours or 1 hour or all day, one day, or whatever it is. But you put a timer on it and you say to yourself, I have to do this for this amount of time. Like if you say, I'm going to cry for 2 hours, you have to cry for 2 hours. And there's something that happens in your body that it's hard to do that.
It was.
You know, if you tell yourself, I'm going to be sad for 4 hours, I would challenge anybody. I don't care how sad you feel. If you put a timer on her and you demand that you have to do this for that length of time, it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's hard. And there's something very cathartic and I think very therapeutic about diving in that deep and just requiring that of yourself and just giving that much respect and attention to it. That, I don't know, it works for me.
Absolutely. And I just think it's so important to feel all the feels. And there's just so often we try to like, oh, chin up, buttercup, and there's a place and a time to try to do that. But you know, we're in our heads 24/7. That's a long time to wrestle with this uncertainty of the future. So I really do feel that it's essential to feel all the feels and sort out all the emotions. And then we can dismiss the ones that aren't working for us and choose the ones that we want to focus on.
Yeah. I think as a coach, even though I'm working specifically, most of the time we start off working with people from a business perspective, but people are humans. And so oftentimes I've had lots of clients who've had, you know, tremendous grief. And that grief comes over you at the most unexpected times. And it's the same thing. I still have moments now, every now and again, where I'm like, wow, I'm sad, you know? Yeah. What if I would have had another child, you know? Or I think, you know, I just had those thoughts. And there's no rhyme or reason to them, but consistently leaning into them and recognizing them and just respecting them because they're valid. They're valid. And I think in some way, if we can do that and we sort of validate them instead of push them away, they become less frequent and they become more part of who we are. And I think we're better people for that. I don't know.
So it becomes just part of our story.
Yeah.
But it's not a bookmark that we keep going back to. It's just part of our story.
Right.
So the other thing that blew my mind, and I mean this was the most pivotal moment in the early stages of my journey. You said something to me that I just thought you were bizarre. You said, you know what? I had cancer and I'm thankful that I had cancer. And my mind was just blown. I was like, weirdo, how can you possibly say that? And then you went on to explain why you were thankful that you had cancer. And so let's roll the clock forward. You talk a little bit about this coaching business that you have. I happen to know that you have changed the lives of so many incredible people and helped them elevate their business. And so let's roll the clock forward and tell me why you're thankful for cancer.
All right. Well, I know anytime I ever say that I do, I feel like I'm just a really big weirdo. I don't know, I don't know, something, because I know how crazy it sounds. But I really do, outside of family, kids, grandkids, that I consider my having cancer as one of the things that I am the most grateful for that have ever happened in my life.
Wow.
My life before cancer, I was divorced. I was a single parent, had 3 kids, I was in a job where I was commissioned and I was bonused and I wasn't making any money. And there were not many pieces of my life that were really working well. I mean, I was okay. Don't get me wrong. I was okay, but there were a lot of things that weren't working. And I remember after surgery, I remember laying there and I remember thinking, you know, this thing isn't working for me. Like, and you know, actually it's not working. It's not just little tweaks. There's a lot of really big things that aren't working, big things in my life that aren't working. And I had this really clear thought at the time of, if they're not working in a big way, I'm going to have to make a big change in order to see big results.
Wow.
And so up until that time, even though I'd always been in sales, I had never been brave enough to bet on myself and do anything from a commission only standpoint. From a business perspective, I was always sort of at the mercy, if you will, of whatever company I worked with. While I always did well, if you've ever been in sales in a corporate organization, you know, they move the cheese, right? They change the rules and change the territory. I mean, all of those things happen. And I think what happened in that moment was a very clear thought of elevated personal responsibility. And having a very clear thought, you know what, I've got to fix this. I have to do something. And it was also this idea of, you know what, I can take care of myself. You know what? And if I'm going to bet on somebody, then why don't I do it myself? Why don't I just say, hey, I'm going to make it. I can do this. And I'm willing to take a chance on myself. And I've never been willing to do that. So it was 1999 and it was November. So remember Y2K, you know, everybody thought the world, you know, who knew what was going to happen, you know, January 1st. Right. And I had met somebody, actually, who is now my husband, but I had met somebody who had said, you know, you should consider going in the mortgage business. Well, no. I don't even know anything about mortgage business. No. He said, you know more than you think you do, but it was commission only. And I had dismissed it. So I remember laying there and going, you know, maybe this is something I should look at. So the end of November, 1999, I said, you know what? I'm going to try this mortgage thing. Now, keep in mind, I had gotten 2 mortgages in my life, but I knew nothing about mortgages. I had no idea what I was doing. But what I knew was that I had 4 weeks that I couldn't go back to my old job. And I wasn't supposed to drive, but I had 4 weeks that I could try to figure out how to sell mortgages. I didn't even know what to do, but I knew this. I don't even know. I think maybe it was the drugs or something. I don't know what made this a good idea in my head. But I spent those 4 weeks. I ended up giving my notice. So I ended up going back to work for only 2 weeks. But I put my notice in. And I found somebody who would take me on as a loan officer, commission only, didn't even know what I was doing, and had to pull the kids out of after school care because I had no money. But you know what? I had this sense of, you know what? All I got to do to feed the kids this month is I got to get one loan. I can find one loan. I can beg, borrow, steal. I can talk to everybody on the street corner and find one loan. And that's all I have to do to feed my kids this month. And if I am in control of that.
Absolutely.
I am in control of that. And so that's what happened. And I never looked back. I didn't have a plan B. That first year that I was in the mortgage business, I made twice as much as what I had been making at my other job. And I doubled my earnings for several years. It was my own business. It was all self-generated business. ended up opening my own brokerage, um, ended up getting remarried. It was one of those just game changers that allowed me to have the courage to just sort of step into my power a little bit. I mean, I'm still not there. I don't know if anybody ever is all the way there, but it was sort of that catalyst that yelled at me and said, "Come on, really? Quit playing small. Either live or don't." And I think it was all of those crazy emotions that you go through and all those thoughts that you have and all of those things that come up when you have been told you have cancer and you're faced with, all the possibilities or not, that, taking advantage of that courage, that's, to me, I'm so grateful, because I would not be living in Key West. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, may not be remarried. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. I am incredibly grateful every day for having had this.
That is amazing. And I remember that Friday morning, because that's exactly what you said. You said, if I hadn't had cancer, I wouldn't have gotten into the mortgage business. I wouldn't have done all of the things that I did. I wouldn't have then gotten into Southwestern coaching and started coaching mortgage people and a lot of other people as well. And I wouldn't have met you. And I got to thinking about it, and I was like, she's right. I'm glad she had cancer too. And I literally remember feeling so guilty, because how could I possibly say I'm glad somebody else had cancer? I felt terrible. But but that's really what I thought. I was like, I'm really glad she had cancer too. But the biggest moment then came with your next question to me, which was, what would it take for you to be thankful that you had cancer too? And I went right back to, you're a weirdo. There's nothing that could ever happen that would ever make me happy that I had cancer. And you're like, I didn't say happy, I said thankful. So quite honestly, that is the reason for becoming Ovary Jones. That is the reason, or the catalyst for Together We Box, and everything that we do here. We are on a mission to change the way the cancer battle is fought by strengthening the fighter's mindset. And that all came from that one question: what would have to happen for you to someday be able to say, and I'm thankful that I went through all of that? And I can honestly say, I'm not there yet. I still cannot say I'm thankful that I had cancer. But there are silver linings along the way that you can find. Even on the worst days, you really can find something to be grateful for, something to be thankful for, and learn how to dance in the rain and make peace with this storm. So you've done this so much with your clients. You've really changed so many lives, truly and honestly. Um, is there anything that you tell your clients when they really need to take ownership and find peace in the storms that they go through and find joy? What are some of the things that can help them do that?
Oh, that's a big question. I think it's a little different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I struggle with, but that I have to consistently remember that really serves me well, is learning how to just be present in the moment. Because if you were truly present in the moment, there is absolutely nothing we need right this very second. In this very minute, there's absolutely nothing that we need. Nothing. Right. And even if you have just gotten out of the operating room, or you just got out of chemo, whatever it is, in that moment, it's okay. You're fine. Like, you're okay in that moment. And it doesn't mean you're going to stay like that. In fact, what it means is the exact opposite. It's not going to be like this in the next moment or the next moment. And sometimes knowing that it's not going to be like this is what you need to keep going, but it keeps you grounded. It just keeps you grounded. And I think in addition to that is one of the things I say is face the right direction. And for me, facing the right direction is facing what it is that we want instead of looking backwards at what we don't want, or looking over at what we're afraid is going to happen, or looking at, ahead at what we can try to force to make happen. And just making peace with facing forward, facing where you want to be, what you want to feel, and being okay with whatever that answer is.
Yeah.
Because I think we all know that, without contrast, we aren't able to appreciate, if we've never been sad, we don't really understand that really exhilarating joy. We have to have that contrast. It doesn't mean we have to enjoy it. Nobody enjoys it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it gives us a different lens through which we can see it. And if we just stay facing forward and instead of looking at what we are trying to avoid, or looking at where we were or where we think we want to be or what we don't have, if we can just stay in the moment and stay focused on how we feel. You always have moments where you feel good. You always have moments where you feel joy. And if we can stay focused on those, we're going to get more of those. I'm convinced.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So you have done something really incredible recently, and that is a dream or a vision that you had for developing a mortgage training for brand new loan officers. So what you did was you answered a problem that a lot of people have in the mortgage industry by creating Elevate Mortgage for brand new loan officers to catapult them ahead in their career. And it's just been incredible the results that brand new people are having in the mortgage business. So tell us, Angie, a little bit about how that feels, coming where you've come from all through your cancer battle, and to now being able to bring this big dream, incredible dream, to fruition.
Well, first of all, I mean, this has been a year like no other. So it's been absolutely amazing. It just really has been amazing. And, when I think about it, the kind of person that I am is nothing could ever happen fast enough. That's just inherently who I am. I'm always like on to the next and on to the next. And I'm always like 14 steps ahead. And I think life has a way of helping us learn what we need to learn when we need to learn it. And whether it's putting this program together or other projects that somebody might have, I think we all know timing is everything. And I think that I've consistently had to learn lessons that have taught me you can go as fast as you want, but you've got to be mindful about timing, and things work the way they're supposed to. And so I've learned a tremendous amount of patience, and maybe not everyday patience, right? But at least looking at and stay focusing on what's important and what do you want to do, and figuring out how you can stay focused on that, even though it might not be in the forefront of what you're doing. Because this program that I put together, I sort of had the idea in its full form in 2017. Wow. So this was a long time coming. It really was a long time coming. Just understanding that things have a way of unfolding. And as long as I don't put the light out, but I just keep moving forward, it has been, it's just incredible. I mean, I truly, it has been such a blessing. And it's interesting because I have people that I have with me on that and helping me with that, to promote that and sell that product and be involved with me, that I wouldn't have had back in 2017 had I done it then, or 18. Things just have a way of working out exactly the way they're supposed to work out. Absolutely. And so I am thrilled. Yes, it's been a good year.
It's been exciting watching the success of the program and so many people being impacted in such an incredible positive way. And it's truly when you're able to take somebody in the infancy of their business and catapult them to early success, it's just life changing. It's truly life changing. So just
So
blows
much
my
fun.
mind. Blows my mind.
It's so much fun.
It
It's
is.
so much fun to get on the phone. Today, I was actually did one of my training calls, and what we had talked about last week. She actually has two deals that she was like, all I knew what to do with this to get it all approved and get it set up because of what we talked about last week. And, I don't know. There's just nothing better than that. There's just nothing better than knowing that you helped somebody
Mm-hmm.
in that like significant way, that material way. Like it's tangible. Like you could put a dollar amount on what she's going to make just from those two deals because of the information that she got. And I'm not saying she might not have gotten it some other way, but you know what? I'm gonna sit back and say, you know what, I benefited. I helped a little bit, and I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
absolutely did. Absolutely did. And I know there's people out there that are early in their journey and maybe they're where you were all those years ago thinking, you know what, I've got to make some changes. And maybe your story is going to inspire them to take ownership and do a little inventory work and figure out what's not working. And maybe cancer will be the catalyst that helps them take those steps that they didn't have the courage to take before. So, for those people out there that maybe know a mortgage person, who knows, or just maybe wants to follow you in your career, and I'm just blessed to know you and to be able to work side by side with you. So, for those people out there, how can people get in touch with you?
The easiest way, you can just visit the website. It's Angie Moss SWC. And yes, that's going to be three S's in the middle of that. Angie Moss SWC.com. That's the landing page. You can either reach out to me through that. That'll come right to me. So yes, that would be the easiest way.
Absolutely. So it's Angie Moss SWC.com.
Yeah, yes. Yes.
Angie, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the Ovary Jones show and sharing your story of inspiration and your story of hope. And Angie, I just have to say I am so thankful that you had cancer.
Well, you know what? Now I have to tell you, I am too, because my ability to know you and know the impact that you're having on this disease and the people that are fighting it and what you're doing with your book, what you're doing with Together We Box, it just escalates my gratitude knowing that it just all works the way it's supposed to.
It absolutely does. If you're fighting today, if you're struggling, look for something to find a little bit of joy in. Put a timer on it. Let yourself cry. Let yourself feel all the feels. Tune in again for our next episode. We have a next guest is going to be just so empowering. Take care. We'll see you next time.